Everything you've been told about healing is a lie, and by the end of this, you'll understand why your pain was never a curse, but the key you've been running from. You wake before dawn again. The room is silent, yet it presses on your chest like a stone slab. You remember the checklist that used to keep life in order: career milestones, a family calendar, therapy appointments, shelves of well-thumbed self-help, yet none of it stopped this heaviness from returning. You stand in the shower, water sliding over skin that no longer feels alive, and a thought emerges like a quiet verdict. I did everything right, and still I do not feel free. There is no one to confess this to without risking judgment, so the thought sinks back into the dark, unspoken but louder than any scream. Days pass in a trance of obligations. You drive, you nod in meetings, you smile on cue. From the outside, everything looks fine, maybe even enviable, yet inside the air is thick and stale. Each gesture costs more energy than it should. By late afternoon, fatigue crawls through your muscles, even though the doctor insists your labs are normal. At night, you lie in bed, and the mind will not stop producing scenes. Memories you would rather forget, fears you cannot name, responsibilities that feel heavier than they should. The ceiling becomes a blank movie screen onto which the psyche projects every unprocessed feeling. Sleep arrives only when exhaustion finally pins you down. There is shame in admitting this. You are the dependable one, the one who keeps promises, the one who listens to others. People come to you for calm advice. They praise your strength. They do not see the tremor behind the calm, the small crack in the facade that widens each year. You remind yourself that countless people have it worse. You compare your pain to tragedies on the news and tell yourself to be grateful. Gratitude becomes another item on the to-do list, another mask of forced positivity that hides the truth. Something deep inside feels caged. You have hunted freedom the way others chase promotions. You repeated affirmations until the words turned hollow. You filled journals with silver-lined reflections that never reached the wound beneath. You attended workshops where you drew future visions on poster paper, chanting collective mantras while a tight knot in your stomach refused to unravel. You paid for therapy and spoke politely about stress and boundaries, avoiding the real darkness because naming it felt disloyal to someone you loved. Each attempt seemed noble on the surface, yet every method slipped off like rain on waxed skin. The pain learned to hide behind new language, new strategies, new tasks. This endless striving becomes its own prison. You run faster, acquire more insight, stack up coping skills, and still wake to the same silent dread. Eventually, exhaustion outweighs hope. You notice yourself daydreaming about disappearing, pulling the phone from the wall, canceling all plans, letting the world spin on without you, not because you desire drama, but because rest feels impossible inside the persona you have built. You can sense a truer self pacing behind the bars, yet the lock seems welded shut. Hear this now. Your pain is not proof of failure. It is not weakness, laziness, or ingratitude. It is intelligence, your psyche signaling that the current strategy for being alive is unsustainable. The weight on your chest speaks a language older than words. It whispers that a fundamental part of you has been exiled in order to keep the peace, and the exile is finished with silence. You are not broken for feeling numb at a birthday party or tearful during a perfectly normal commute. You are responding to an internal law written before you learned your first coping skill. Something in you refuses to pretend any longer. You did not choose this conflict. Much of it began before you had language. Parents pass on invisible contracts, rules about which emotions are safe, which desires earn love, which truths must stay silent. Society adds layers: smile for the photo, soldier through pain, turn the other cheek, manifest positivity. Each rule chisels a small piece off the authentic self. Over decades, these fragments gather in the shadow, the psychological basement where discarded truths wait like restless ghosts. They will not remain quiet forever. They rise through insomnia, anxiety, irritability, fatigue, mysterious aches the doctor cannot explain. They sabotage relationships and careers, not out of malice, but because they crave acknowledgement. So you stand at a threshold tonight. On one side lies the familiar routine, competence, social approval, numb exhaustion. On the other side waits a road without guarantees, paved in raw honesty, grief, and unexpected power. No one can force you across. Yet if you stay, the cost grows heavier each year. Careers change, relationships shift, bodies age, but the exile remains. The ache in the chest is a flare, signaling that the old arrangement, safety in exchange for silence, has expired. By the end of our time together, you will see why this pain was never a mistake. You will understand that someone else's suffering laid stones beneath your feet, creating a bridge you walk every day without noticing. Their unseen sacrifice gave shape to your choices, your beliefs, even the wounds you carry. Recognizing this inheritance will not magically ease the ache, but it will reveal its meaning. Then the path to genuine freedom, costly, demanding, and real, will emerge where you once saw only dead ends. Before we reach that truth, we need to expose why every method you tried fell short. Not because you lacked discipline, but because the system taught you to fight the wrong battle. The next steps will dismantle illusions that kept you circling the same maze. This dismantling may sting, yet it will clear space for something fierce and honest to stand where pretense once lived. Stay with me. Let the weight of these words settle. Allow yourself to feel seen in places you rarely show. The chains you sense are real, yet they are not eternal. They rust with every breath of truth, and truth, once spoken, starts breaking metal. You remember the morning you pinned a handwritten affirmation to the bathroom mirror. It glimmered with hopeful ink, promising a day of radiant joy. You repeated the phrase while brushing your teeth, rolled it over your tongue like a sacred chant, and waited for the spark inside to answer. Instead came the familiar chill, the dull echo of words that never sink below the skin. You blamed yourself for not believing hard enough, so you doubled the ritual, then tripled it, until the affirmations littered every reflective surface. Yet the more you forced sunlight into the room, the more the shadows multiplied in the corners. Positivity, it turns out, can dress itself in armor. It can become a mask so polished that it blinds you to your own reflection. The problem was never laziness or lack of faith. The problem was that relentless positivity demanded you amputate any emotion that did not smile on command. Every grin became a muzzle, every cheerful mantra a fresh layer of denial. You were taught to exile grief, rage, envy, yet those exiles learned to rule from underground. Therapy was meant to be the sanctuary where masks could fall, where old wounds could breathe. You sat on soft couches and spoke in careful sentences while a clock ticked behind the therapist's chair. Many therapists work with courage and integrity, yet the system they must navigate rewards symptom management over transformation. It asks how your week went, offers coping strategies, then schedules the next appointment. You leave with tools to breathe through panic, to reframe negative thoughts, to track mood fluctuations in tidy columns. Useful, yes, but coping is not the same as awakening. Coping teaches you to survive the cage with less friction. Awakening demands you notice the cage and question who built it. When therapy remains at the level of behavioral tweaks, the deeper pattern keeps pulsing in the dark. The unspoken rule, keep the session safe, keep the hour tidy, can disinfect the very wounds that need raw air. You exit feeling civilized, yet somewhere in the body, a primitive ache still howls. You sought answers in books, workshops, streaming courses taught by charismatic experts. You highlighted passages, filled journals with revelations, collected certificates of completion. Knowledge piled up like bricks, but bricks alone do not form a house. Insight without embodiment hovers in the mind, untethered. Emotional wounds live in flesh and nerve, in the muscles that clench when a certain voice rises, in the gut that twists at the scent of an old perfume. You cannot outread the language of the body. You cannot lecture the nervous system into safety. Each new theory became another clever strategy to stay in the head and avoid the trembling heart. The library grew, yet the nights stayed long. Here is the hinge where illusion becomes chain. Everything you pushed away gathered power in silence. The shadow is not a poetic metaphor. It is a functioning system inside you, a clandestine government of banished emotions and rejected memories. While the conscious mind crafts goals, the shadow steers choices with invisible hands. It decides which relationships feel magnetic, which ambitions ignite, which roads mysteriously collapse. You notice patterns, sabotaged promotions, recurring conflicts, sudden fatigue when success approaches, and label them bad luck or self-sabotage. In truth, the shadow is enacting every vow you made to survive childhood. Never outshine a parent, never speak anger, never feel desire without guilt. These vows remain in force long after the original danger has passed. They patrol the borders of the psyche, keeping you safe, small, and starving. Most psychologists will not tell you this. Your darkest feelings are not the enemy. They are the map. Shame points toward unloved parts of you. Rage marks the spot where a boundary was violated. Despair traces the outline of a dream aborted too soon. To follow the map, you must step into territories polite society labels unacceptable. That step threatens every rule that used to earn affection. No wonder the mind reaches for easier remedies. Positive thinking offered a sugar-coated escape. Therapy, when constrained by insurance codes and time limits, offered professional containment. Books offered intellectual seduction. Each path promised relief while allowing the shadow to stay underground. The result is cognitive dissonance. You know the theory of healing, yet the wound still bleeds. You can describe boundaries, yet still say yes when the body screams no. You can spot red flags in others, yet date the same pattern with a different face. The gulf between knowledge and experience widens until life itself feels unreal. Now the mirage cracks. You see that easy fixes were never meant to free you. They were designed to preserve social order. A relentlessly positive citizen is predictable. A symptom-managed client is billable. A self-help consumer keeps buying. To awaken would disrupt the system. Awakening means feeling anger without apology, grieving losses that ancestors ignored, claiming desire that culture mislabels selfish. It means walking away from roles that made other people comfortable. Freedom has always been expensive, and the price is authenticity. Authenticity costs relationships built on your compliance. It costs identities built on your usefulness. It costs illusions that once kept you safe. You may feel resistance rising now, a part of you whispering that the old methods were not entirely worthless. That voice is correct. Positivity can brighten a stormy hour. Therapy can stabilize a crisis. Books can spark insight. The trap lies in mistaking temporary relief for permanent liberation. Relief soothes symptoms. Liberation rearranges the architecture of the soul. Relief polishes the bars. Liberation breaks them. Imagine your shadow as a locked basement filled with exiled selves. Each self clutches a piece of life force that was deemed unacceptable. The joyful child who sang too loudly, the furious adolescent who refused silence, the grieving adult who wept at the wrong time. Every exile guards an energy you now need. When you descend those stairs and open the door, chaos erupts. The mind fears that chaos, so it retreats to the rituals it trusts. Think positive, schedule another session, buy another book. Yet the basement remains. Until you sit in that dim room and let each exile speak, the chain persists. The body is the doorway. Notice the tight jaw when you swallow disagreement, the shallow breath when attention turns toward you, the collapsing shoulders when someone praises you. These are not random habits. They are living flashbacks to moments when expression felt dangerous. Language may rationalize, but fascia remembers. Muscles remember. Blood chemistry remembers. The shadow uses the alphabet of sensation, not cognition. To meet it, you must feel. Feeling is not indulgence. Feeling is data. Rage reveals the exact width of your violated boundary. Grief exposes the depth of your attachment to what is passing. Envy illuminates dormant desire. These emotions are navigational instruments, each calibrated to guide you toward wholeness. Positivity alone flattens the instrument panel, replaces nuanced readings with a single neon sign that says, "Good vibes only." Flight by that sign eventually crashes. Therapy can become transformative when it descends from the intellect into the body, when it holds space for silence wider than explanation, when the therapist dares to step beyond protocols and meet the client as a fellow traveler. That caliber of encounter exists, but it shatters the efficiency demanded by production-driven systems. Many practitioners burn out before they can offer it consistently. The emptiness you felt after certain sessions was not your failure. It was a structural limitation dressed as professionalism. Books and courses do help, yet only when treated as invitations rather than prescriptions. A true invitation leads you back to your own experience. A prescription keeps you dependent on external authority. Notice how often you highlighted a sentence and sighed with relief, then closed the book and returned to the exact life that sentence critiqued. Information without confrontation becomes decoration. Let the dissonance ring. Let the contradictions clang in your chest. They signal the end of a trance. You can sense the floor tilting, the furniture sliding toward a crack in the wall where authentic life is seeping in. Simpler solutions will call to you. They will promise quick equilibrium. They will urge you to calm down, think positive, push through. Hear their offer and remember the cost. The price of calm without truth is self-betrayal. The price of swift equilibrium is prolonged exile of the soul. You have every right to anger at the industries that monetized your longing. You have every right to grief for the years spent spinning the same wheel. Honor that anger, honor that grief. They sharpen discernment. They teach you to ask whether a practice integrates the shadow or merely paints it gold. Take a breath. Feel the milk-warm air at the back of your throat. Sense the weight of your body on the chair. This is the terrain where theory ends and engagement begins. The next step cannot be outsourced. You will not find it on a page, a couch, or a vision board. It hides in the room inside the ribcage, the room where unloved feelings wait to be claimed. And here is the brutal truth. The freedom you dream of always comes with a cost. That cost will shake you. It will demand currency paid in illusions, paid in personas, paid in the comfortable numbness that once passed for peace. Yet on the far side of payment stands something older than hope, something that was never wounded in the first place. The shadow guards that treasure. When you reclaim it, the mask of easy fixes falls away forever. The paradox stands here like an iron gate you never noticed before. The bridge to freedom is not built from your laughter, your light, or your happiest memories. It is built from pain, layer upon layer, fused by the heat of every silent breakdown you survived and every unseen sacrifice made by someone who walked before you. Their nights without rest poured the concrete under your first steps. Your own heartbreaks stretched the cables that now hold the weight of your future courage. Joy decorates the journey, yet pain forges the path. So when rage flashes, when grief drags you to the floor, when loneliness echoes inside your ribs, understand that nothing is wrong with you. These feelings are signal flares sent by the deepest parts of your psyche, guides pointing toward the places where borrowed chains still rub your skin raw. They do not need to be silenced or fixed. They need to be heard, honored, and translated into motion. Each pulse of discomfort is a compass needle swinging toward authenticity. If these words hit something inside you, subscribe to this channel, not for me, but because algorithms will push this truth to others who are drowning in silence right now. They need this as much as you do. You carry within you a silent ledger, written in the ink of every feeling you once hid to stay acceptable. Carl Jung called the locked room where that ledger sits the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything you decided could not exist in daylight. Each time you swallowed anger to keep the peace, a small shard of your power slid into that room. Each time you pretended numbness while your heart broke, another shard followed. Over decades, the room filled with the parts of you that once laughed too loud, grieved too long, wanted too much, or said no too fiercely. They stand there now, whole yet waiting, holding the vitality that once pulsed through your veins. Freedom demands that you open that door. The idea sounds noble until the handle turns and heat rushes out. The air inside is thick with feelings that never learned polite conversation. They surge forward with stories, body memories, ancestral echoes. They do not care for tidy resolutions or spiritual platitudes. They want embodiment, not explanation. This is why freedom feels dangerous. It requires the death of the version of you that mastered safe roles, the version that kept the family calm, the workplace running, the social circle comfortable. That version was built on survival intelligence, and it does not dissolve without grief. Every family delivers an unspoken curriculum. You learned early which emotions earned a smile, which silences averted conflict, which dreams threatened the fragile peace. Perhaps sorrow in your childhood home was labeled weakness, so you became the resilient one. Perhaps anger from caretakers thundered through the walls, so you became the peacemaker. Each adaptation protected you once, then calcified into habit. The protective shell hardened around a living core that still needs to breathe. The shell carries your parents' wounds in its very shape. If a parent never felt safe to succeed, you may sabotage your own breakthroughs. If a parent feared abandonment, you may cling to relationships that drain you. The body remembers these relational blueprints, even when the mind insists it has moved on. Denying the shadow costs energy every single day. The shoulders tense to silence grief, the jaw locks to dam rage, the gut tightens to bury fear. Blood pressure rises, digestion falters, sleep fragments. The body pays interest on every unacknowledged wound. Meanwhile, the psyche pays in repetition. Unresolved pain repeats itself across decades, choosing new characters but staging the same play. A belittling boss echoes a critical father. A distant partner echoes an emotionally unavailable mother. Without conscious interruption, the pattern passes to the next generation like a baton in a relay none of you remember signing up for. Emotional inheritance moves through stories, gestures, even posture. You have likely felt ancestral weight in family gatherings. The way silence thickens when certain topics skirt the edge. The way laughter grows loud to cover a collective grief no one names. Those currents flow into your nervous system before you form memories, teaching you how close you may stand to truth before belonging is threatened. The cost of denial is cumulative. Each suppressed emotion becomes another link in a chain, and eventually, the chain restricts movement so tightly that life narrows to maintenance. At that stage, people often say they feel old, although numerical age matters less than the weight of unreleased history. The good news hides inside the same sentence. Each link was forged inside you, which means each link can melt in the furnace of honest feeling. The furnace lives in the body. Thoughts alone cannot generate the heat required for alchemy. Cognitive understanding is useful, yet it remains cool, abstract. The body holds temperature, rhythm, pulse. When emotion finally gains permission to pulse through tissue without censorship, the chain begins to soften. Trauma is not the event. Trauma is the residue that lives in fascia and nerve. The body keeps the score because the body is the scoreboard. A startle response that never resets, a diaphragm that forgets how to release, a pelvic floor clenched as if still waiting for the original blow. These are not character flaws, they are time capsules. Talking about the capsules helps name them, but naming does not open them. Sensation must complete the original interrupted sequence. The shake that never shook, the sob that never sounded, the shout that never split the air must move now, in present time, for the nervous system to recognize safety. That movement often feels overwhelming because culturally, we have been taught to fear intensity. Yet intensity is simply life force, accelerating to break confinement. Here lies the paradox at the heart of healing. Pain is the doorway. The very sensations you label intolerable contain the codes for release. Avoiding them prolongs captivity. Moving toward them, slowly, with support, turns the key. Your physiology is wired for completion. When the system senses a threat, it mobilizes energy. When the threat passes, it wants to discharge that energy in trembling, tears, labored breaths. If discharge is blocked, the survival energy freezes. Frozen energy distorts perception, reacts to benign cues as if they are danger, drains vitality. Meeting frozen energy with mindful presence thaws it. Thawing feels like heat, like tingling, like nausea, like waves of sadness, like flashes of anger. These are signs of life returning, not indicators of breakdown. Freedom asks for blood, not literal blood, but the death of illusions, the grief of letting go of who you thought you were. Illusions die loudly. They built careers, marriages, identities. They earned applause. They saved you from chaos when you were too young to choose differently. Mourning them feels like betrayal, yet staying loyal to them betrays the self longing to emerge. The grief is not a mistake, it is a rite of passage. Tears baptize the new ground. Rage clears dead wood. Fear sharpens focus. All of it is holy labor. Acknowledge now the bridges you walk that others built through their suffering and their love. An ancestor endured displacement so you could speak the language you speak. A caregiver suppressed dreams so you could attend school. A friend stayed on the phone through your darkest hour, spending emotional currency they could have saved for themselves. Their sacrifices laid planks beneath your feet. Some planks are sturdy, others warped by the pain invested in them. You decide which to keep, which to replace, and what kind of bridge you will construct for the ones who follow. Emotional inheritance is not destiny, it is raw material. You can replicate the pattern or transmute it. Transmutation is costly, but liberating. Replication is cheaper up front, but binds the future. Thinking alone will not carry out this work. The intellect may map the terrain, yet muscles climb the mountain. Somatic practices, breath work, trauma-informed movement, voice release, relational witnessing, these bring the map into 3 dimensions. They let the shadow parts speak in the native tongue of sensation. When your throat vibrates with a growl you once muted, lineage shifts. When your chest heaves with grief the family never named, lineage shifts. These embodied ruptures make space for novelty. After novelty arrives, the mind may translate it into insight. Insight born of the body roots more deeply than insight born of analysis alone. The thing you fear most holds what you need most. Inside rage waits the conviction that your needs matter. Inside grief waits the love you thought was lost. Inside shame waits the longing to belong as you are. Pain is the guardian of treasure. Most societies teach us to demonize the guardian, to battle it with pills, distractions, or forced positivity. That battle can last a lifetime and still leave the treasure untouched. Bowing to the guardian, listening to its terms, feeling its language in your marrow, this approach reveals a hidden door. Each time you honor a painful impulse rather than suppress it, the door cracks wider. You stifle a scream on a subway platform because culture demands decorum. Yet at home, you close the bedroom door and let your voice break open into primal sound. You notice numbness after a tense meeting, so instead of scrolling your phone, you lie on the floor and breathe until sensation returns. These acts are small rebellions against the unspoken rule that healing must stay comfortable. Healing rarely feels comfortable, but it always feels truthful. Internal safety stems not from neutrality, but from congruence. When the face, voice, and posture align with the true feeling inside, the nervous system relaxes even if the emotion is intense. Conversely, forced calm withholds truth, and the nervous system strains to hold the secret. Many adults live with faces arranged into pleasant shapes, while the body thrums with restless electricity. That split exhausts metabolic resources. Integration means the same energy flows through expression and experience, unimpeded. You may hear another inherited rule whispering now, keep this work private, never upset the family balance, stay loyal. Loyalty to dysfunction perpetuates dysfunction. Genuine loyalty honors the deeper well-being of the lineage, and that well-being sometimes requires short-term discomfort. Your liberation scene may unsettle relationships that relied on your silence. Some bonds will stretch and survive, others will crack and reveal hollowness. Loss here is not failure, it is pruning. The psyche, like a tree, sheds branches to direct sap toward new growth. The nervous system possesses a window of tolerance within which feelings can be processed without overwhelm. Move deliberately, widening the window over time. Too fast plunges into re-traumatization, too slow circles inside intellectual safety. Somatic tracking, notice tingling in hands, tightness in belly, pulse in temples, anchors awareness. When sensation intensifies, orient to the room, feel your feet, lengthen exhale. This toggling between activation and regulation teaches the system flexibility. Flexibility breeds resilience, the capacity to meet life with presence rather than react from frozen past. Meaning emerges as sensation integrates. You might suddenly grasp why every celebration triggered melancholy. Joy touched a memory of childhood excitement met with ridicule. You might realize chronic neck tension protected you from hearing the words you longed for but never received. Understanding born from felt experience carries the power to reorganize behavior organically. You no longer force yourself to set boundaries. Boundaries assert themselves through newfound clarity of gut signal. You no longer recite affirmations to cultivate confidence. Confidence rises as the spine unwinds from years of protective curvature. And here's the most uncomfortable truth: the bridge to your freedom. It might be built on someone else's pain and love. You stand on structures formed by earlier sacrifices, and you will offer your own blood of illusion, your own grief of identity loss, so that another soul can cross. The continuum is unavoidable. The only choice is whether you contribute unconscious repetition or conscious transformation. Pain multiplied turns to oppression. Pain transmuted turns to wisdom. Rest in that reality. Let its gravity settle into bone. The work ahead remains demanding, yet it holds a promise no quick fix can counterfeit. At the edge of the shadow's territory, authentic life waits, raw and luminous. Walk forward. The guardian of pain recognizes courage. The door stands open. You sit in a room that seems ordinary, yet every plank of its floor and every nail in its frame is the result of another person's invisible labor. Some stranger hauled the lumber through early morning fog, another bent over exhausted shoulders to hammer it into place, and someone else inspected every joint so the roof above your head would hold steady. Their tired hands turned into the comfort you barely notice. The same principle reaches far beyond wood and steel. Moments of safety, bursts of inspiration, even lullabies you once heard in the dark, all carry the imprint of sacrifice. You walk through life as though on a bridge paved by footsteps you never saw. Parents, partners, friends, mentors, distant ancestors, nameless workers, and forgotten rebels paid tolls of pain so you could move forward without collapsing. Picture a grandmother who hid her terror behind a calm voice when soldiers marched down her street. She clenched her jaw to keep children from absorbing the full weight of that fear. Decades later, you inherit a curious steadiness under pressure. It feels like a personal trait, but its roots travel back to her silent act of containment. A father labored double shifts, his knees grinding against concrete so tuition could be paid on time. The diploma on your wall carries microscopic traces of bone dust and midnight exhaustion. A friend answered the phone when your thoughts skidded toward oblivion, their own plans falling apart so you might hold on one more night. That lifeline is woven into the resilience you now draw upon to help others. None of these offerings asked for repayment. They simply folded into your path, letting you call the resulting space freedom. This is not a call to drown in guilt. Guilt serves no one. What matters is clarity. Freedom is never free in the cosmic ledger. Every step forward rests on a precedent of human cost. A society that praises self-made success often edits out the backstage crew that kept the lights on. Food appears in grocery aisles because unseen workers woke long before dawn. Electricity flows because technicians crawl through storms to mend broken lines. Emotional support exists because someone chooses to stay present with your pain, even when their own pain screams for attention. Every convenience, every opportunity, every breath of relative peace sits atop a pyramid of labor and sacrifice. Recognizing that truth strips away the fantasy of solitary triumph and invites mature gratitude. Some sacrifices were offered in love, others in desperation, still others by coercion. All of them shaped the contours of your possibilities. To deny this inheritance is to stand on a bridge while pretending it hovers in midair. Denial feels easier than facing the weight of interconnected pain, yet it carries hidden interest. It dulls empathy and breeds entitlement. Entitlement calcifies into indifference, and indifference becomes the seed of future harm. The chain continues until someone turns toward the buried suffering and names it. Naming pain releases its grip on the next generation. When you see clearly the cost embedded in your comforts, you gain the power to transform that cost into conscious stewardship rather than passive consumption. Your own suffering now becomes part of the same economy. The nights you spend wrestling with shame, the tears that carve raw canyons down your face, the rage that shakes your ribcage until your voice finally erupts in truth, none of it is waste. Each moment of honest agony converts unprocessed history into usable wisdom. That wisdom will, in time, shorten someone else's dark night. Perhaps a child will grow under your roof feeling safe to express anger because you learned to express yours without violence. Perhaps a friend will finally grieve because your presence offers proof that grief does not drown the one who feels it. Pain metabolized becomes medicine. Pain denied becomes poison. The choice is stark: circulate pain as healing or recycle it as harm. This reality refuses to be softened. Everything labeled freedom hides a price tag in human pain. The car you drive, the ideas you spread, the ability to contemplate purpose rather than mere survival, all of it draws from a reservoir filled by others who did not get to choose ease. Accepting this fact invites humility. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is alignment with what is real. When you walk with humility, entitlement dissolves, and with it dissolves much of the resentment that colors ordinary conflict. You argue less about trivial inconveniences once you feel the heartbeat of unseen labor inside every comfort. Anger still rises where injustice thrives, but that anger seeks correction rather than domination, because it recognizes kinship even with those on the other side of a dispute. Here the path forks. One route keeps the illusion intact. You can soothe discomfort with new distractions, maintain the narrative that success arrived through isolated grit, and avoid acknowledging the bridge beneath your feet. This route promises stability, yet demands constant vigilance against any crack in the story. The cost is numbness. The heart must stay half awake to prevent overwhelming empathy. Over time, vitality shrinks to the size of the lies you protect. The other route requires courage. It asks you to honor the pain that gave you life by facing your own fully. You feel the inherited grief shaking in your bones, and instead of silencing it, you let it teach you. You trace the contour of rage handed down through generations, and instead of unleashing it blindly, you transmute its fire into clear boundaries. You sense the echo of ancestral shame when you dare to rest, and instead of hustling to outrun it, you pause, feel the burn, and breathe until shame recognizes it can leave. Each time you meet pain with presence, you pay forward a different currency. You invest consciousness instead of unconscious repetition. Slowly, the emotional economy around you changes. Facing pain does not romanticize suffering. It simply respects the unavoidable cost embedded in human growth. You bleed truth where others bled secrecy. You bleed compassion where others bled contempt. The bridge strengthens. The structure shifts from fragile denial to resilient honesty. Those who walk after you feel the difference, even if they cannot name it. Children laugh a little freer. Colleagues brainstorm without fear of ridicule. Partners argue without threatening abandonment. These subtle shifts echo through corridors of time longer than any individual lifespan. The price of your freedom is not money, not time. It is the courage to bleed truth where others stayed silent. Bleeding truth means admitting moments of selfishness, confronting internalized prejudice, owning the ways you benefited from systems that crushed someone else. It means apologizing without excuse, forgiving without forgetting, choosing repair over retaliation. The blood is symbolic, yet tangible. It is the energy expended in uncomfortable conversations, the tears shed in solitary rooms, the tremors released in somatic practice, the ink poured onto journal pages until long-buried narratives surface. Each drop rewrites the ledger. Acceptance of this truth brings real power. This power does not swagger. It does not need applause. It stands rooted, as calm as deep water, aware of the currents beneath every surface. With this power you move through crowded streets, sensing the invisible threads binding stranger to stranger. You choose purchases with awareness of supply chains. You craft words with awareness of how language can heal or wound. You mentor others, knowing they will someday guide someone you will never meet. You rest without shame because you grasp that a rested nervous system is more likely to break cycles of harm. Power anchored in interdependence feels paradoxically lighter than the desperate drive for personal glory. Nothing to prove, everything to steward. Imagine a future where more people carry this power. Workplaces design policies that honor human rhythms rather than grind them. Communities allocate resources, acknowledging historical theft rather than denying it. Families celebrate the full spectrum of emotion rather than shaming inconvenient feelings. None of these shifts require perfect people. They require people willing to confront inherited pain and convert it into relational intelligence. The bridge expands, spans wider rivers, withstands heavier storms. You may sense a quiet grief rising alongside this vision. Grief for the generations who carried crushing weights without relief. Grief for the parts of you that suffered before guidance arrived. Let that grief flow. It is water washing old blood from the stones. It prepares the surface for new footprints. Do not rush its release. Sit with the tremor in your diaphragm, the warmth behind your eyes, the heaviness in your limbs. These are signs that the ledger is updating. When the wave subsides, a clear stillness follows. In that stillness, you can hear your own heartbeat synchronize with something larger than personal ambition. Now breathe, feel the floor beneath your feet, sense the 100 stories embedded in that one square of ground. Workers mined minerals, engineers calculated load, drivers transported materials, loved ones waited at home. The earth itself endured blasting, cutting, molding. You participate in a cosmic choreography older than memory. Respect for that dance is the beginning of wisdom. Living in harmony with it is the maturation of freedom. Your suffering will not vanish. Life guarantees fresh pain as long as hearts keep beating. The difference lies in what the pain becomes. Left unconscious, it repeats like a virus. Met consciously, it mutates into guidance. Your nervous system, once hijacked by ancestral alarms, evolves into a tuning fork for authenticity. Choices align with values because the cost of misalignment feels viscerally unbearable to a body now fluent in truth. This embodied integrity radiates outward. Children sense it in how you listen. Partners feel it in how you argue. Strangers register it in the microseconds of eye contact exchanged while crossing a street. You are no saint. Saints are myths polished by later generations. You are a complex, breathing human who sometimes falls back into avoidance. The bridge does not demand perfection. It asks perseverance. Each time you recognize avoidance, you pivot back toward presence sooner. Each pivot strengthens the structure. The work becomes a practice, like tending a living garden. Weeds still sprout, yet the soil grows richer. Remember the ledger. Trace its ink without judgment. Where you find names of those who hurt you, notice the names of those who helped. Where you find blank lines of neglect, write new lines of care for someone else. The ledger is dynamic. Every act of conscious compassion edits the narrative. Every boundary enforced with dignity corrects past transgressions. Every apology delivered with sincerity closes a loop left open by silence. Your freedom is not a solitary trophy. It is a torch passed through generations, its flame fueled by both pain and love. Some hands burned carrying it, some hands dropped it in exhaustion, yet the flame survived. Now it rests with you. You can shield it within comfort and let the world stumble in darkness, or you can lift it high, illuminating the terrain for those behind you. Either way, the torch demands heat. Heat comes from truth, and truth often hurts before it heals. Stand here a moment longer. Feel the pulse in your wrists. That pulse carries blood older than your name. Inside each beat lives a chorus of ancestors urging you to refine what they could not. Accept their invitation. Their unfinished songs echo in your gestures, ready for closure. Give them closure through courageous living. Speak what they could not. Rest where they could not. Rejoice where they could not. That is how inheritance evolves into destiny chosen rather than destiny imposed. When dawn arrives tomorrow, the world will look unchanged. Traffic will hum, emails will ping, headlines will roar. Yet inside you, a seismic shift settles. You now perceive the hidden scaffolding of sacrifice supporting every ordinary scene. Gratitude flows without forced optimism. Responsibility follows without grim obligation. This pairing of gratitude and responsibility forms the true backbone of freedom. You walk onward, aware that every step costs something and that you are willing to pay in the only currency that liberates: honest presence. The bridge holds, the horizon widens. The ledger records a new entry, paid in full, forwarded in love. You have absorbed heavy truths, and your pulse still beats, proof that the heart can hold paradox without breaking. Freedom does not arrive from the sky as a shining revelation. It grows like muscle, fiber by fiber, through deliberate engagement with what once frightened you. These practices are not glitter on a wound. They are tools for excavation, stitching, and eventual strength. Use them slowly, honestly, and with respect for your own limits, because integrity, not speed, forges lasting change. Begin with a blank page and a door you have long kept barred. Shadow journaling means letting forbidden words stand in ink without flinching. Write what you hate. Name the person whose success you silently resent, the trait in your partner that spikes fury, the aspect of your own body that summons shame. Write what you fear. Spell out the dread of abandonment, the terror of insignificance, the panic that work defines your worth. Write what you envy. Record the life you claim not to want, but secretly crave, the intimacy you dismiss as naive, the ease you label lazy because ease feels dangerous. Do not soften nouns or polish verbs. Let sentences stagger, curse, contradict. The page can handle violence that once turned inward. When the ink dries, read aloud in a whisper. Hearing the texture of your darkness breaks the spell of secrecy. The shadow no longer rules from the basement. It sits at the table, seen, and therefore partially disarmed. Close the notebook, place a hand over its cover, and acknowledge that nothing catastrophic occurred. You met the monster, and it turned out to be an exiled fragment waiting for witness. The body carries every story the mind tries to forget, so grounding must follow writing. Stand barefoot on a stable surface. Bend your knees just enough to feel weight settle into the arches of your feet. Draw breath down the spine as if filling an ancient well. On the exhale, imagine roots threading through the floor into soil that existed long before your lineage began. Shoulders drop without command, jaw loosens, eyes soften focus. Name aloud sensations as they emerge, tingling in calves, warmth behind sternum, buzzing at the base of skull. The nervous system hears its own language and relaxes because it knows someone finally understands. If trembling arrives, allow it. Tremor is discharge, the body completing cycles interrupted by past shock. Use the exhale like a friend steadying your elbow. After several breaths, lift the head, feel air glide along skin, and notice any tiny pocket of ease. Even a pinprick of softness is evidence that regulation is possible. Return to this practice in grocery lines, meetings, traffic. Regulation in ordinary moments rewires survival patterns faster than heroic bursts of intensity. Sitting with pain requires courage that looks quiet from the outside. Choose a time each day when distractions cannot easily intrude. Dim lights enough to sense the room, yet withdraw from outer drama. Settle into a chair that supports the spine. Close the eyes or lower the gaze. Invite the body to present whichever sensation stands nearest the doorway. Perhaps a clamp around the throat surfaces, or a hollow under the ribs, or a buzzing behind the eyes. Instead of reaching for a screen or a snack, stay with the raw texture. Breathe as if tidying a neglected room, slow and thorough. Thoughts will propose escape routes. Thank them silently and keep breathing. After several minutes, emotion often rides in on the back of sensation. Tears, anger, laughter, or numbness may surge. Regard each wave as weather over an ocean that cannot be harmed by storms. When the timer sounds or instinct signals completion, place a hand on the area that spoke loudest and say internally, "I hear you." Consistency matters more than duration. 10 honest minutes daily surpass sporadic hours of forced contemplation. These practices do not guarantee linear progress. Some days the notebook stays blank because language hides. Some days grounding feels like standing on marbles. Some sittings amplify pain instead of easing it. This is not failure, it is data. The psyche reveals layers only when capacity exists to digest them. Celebrate every instance of awareness, no matter how brief. Awareness is the currency that buys freedom. Do not walk this road in secrecy. Share discoveries with those who prove capable of respect. A trusted friend, a trauma-informed practitioner, a support circle can mirror progress when your own eyes cannot see it. Community counters the old lie that pain isolates you from the tribe. In truth, Shared vulnerability is the weave that holds tribes together. Speak your shadow aloud and watch another face soften in recognition. Listen to another confession and notice your own shame lose weight. Mutual witnessing accelerates integration because the nervous system calibrates in relationship. Now the bridge calls for collective movement. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many here are ready for the truth. If you feel that it is time to meet your shadow, write, "My darkness is my power." Together we create a circle of those who refuse to look away. If a mask slipped today and you choose to leave it on the ground, write, "Surrendering the disguise." Every declaration sets another plank beneath someone else's foot. This is only the beginning. The bridge you're about to cross will demand everything, but what waits on the other side is real.